Hi guys. This is not gonna be in my story. Well, it kind of is in my story, but not really. Like, I'm not reading everything off my phone. I've got notes on here that I'm just kind of gonna look to. But this is basically the story of how I was diagnosed with autism. I'm gonna angle my chair. This is my story of how I was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder and anxiety when I was 13. I'm 16 now. When I was around 6.5, 7 years old, my younger brother, who was 4, so I would have been about 7, he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. He was 4, and obviously he's a boy, so it's more pronounced in boys. Autism just in general is more pronounced in boys, and it's more noticeable in boys, but girls tend to mask it more easily, which was my biggest issue. This is why we didn't realise anything was really wrong with me until I was about 9 or 10. But I remember thinking, when he was diagnosed, my mum kind of sat me down and gave me the talk. She was like, right, okay, we all know that Gavin's a bit different. We all know that he does things, and we need to be really understanding about it. And I was like, oh, right, okay, so we're going to need to be really understanding about how he gets away with murder and I don't. That was my biggest pet peeve about it, was that he could get away with things I couldn't get away with. I'm going to muck up my hair. When I was around 7.5, 8 years old, a documentary came out, like a kids documentary on CBBC, which I was really into at the time. That came out, and it was about a girl who had autism, and I was like, this is me. I can actually really relate to this. She was listing off all the things that she did, the way her autism affected her and how it affected her everyday life. And I was sitting, on my living room watching it, and I was like, I do that. That's me. I do that too. And it was at the time I was a bit of a loner at school. I didn't really have very many friends. I still don't. I find it really hard to make and keep friendships, which I think is just how I am. But, when I saw this documentary, it really opened my eyes a bit. I'd never heard of autism being used about girls. It had only ever been about boys, and my only experience of it was through my younger brother, he's not severely autistic. He's not, I don't want to be derogatory or anything, but he's not in a wheelchair or anything. You've seen him in my videos. He doesn't understand social situations very well. I'm not really very much better, but I'm slightly higher up on the spectrum. When I was 9, we began the diagnosis process, which for us, I don't know if you can tell from my accent, and I probably mentioned it in a couple of my videos, I live in Scotland, which is part of the United Kingdom, if you didn't know, which everyone probably flipping did. And I began speech and language therapy at 9 years old, which for most kids is actually pretty late in the game. Most kids are diagnosed before they turn kind of 6, 7, which was when we actually realised that something was wrong with me. So basically, I would go in once a week. I think it was a Tuesday morning or a Tuesday afternoon. I would go into this office, and I know the woman. I'm not going to embarrass her, and I don't have her permission to use her name in my video. I'm going to call her Dr. Miracle, because she really did work a miracle with me. So me and Dr. Miracle would sit and we would talk about how social situations worked with me. And it was through working with Dr. Miracle that we realised, actually, it's not a speech problem I have. It's not a brain issue. It's nothing like that. Mine is a neurological, which means that it never leaves. I'm not neurotypical, so I'm not a normal person. But you know that anyway. What we basically realised was a lot of the traits for female autism, I fit. I fitted a lot of those traits. I don't know if that's the correct context to have that sentence in. And then Dr. Miracle sat down my mum, and I was nearly 10 at this point. I think I was about 9.5 or so. 9.5. I was 9.5 when Dr. Miracle told my mum that she thought I was autistic. And that was the first time that I'd heard the word autism about me. I'd never associated myself with any kind of mental illness, physical illness, any problem, nothing at all. Nothing like that until now. And when she told my mum that, I could see my mum, she was asking a lot of questions. I don't remember very many of them. I don't think I remember any of them actually, but I remember kind of sitting in the chair and I was daydreaming and I was thinking, is this the answer to why I am the way I am? Is this how I don't fit in with everyone else? Is this why when I'm in a social situation I get like a tight feeling in my chest and it makes me feel really nervous and anxious? At this point, age 9.5, I was referred to Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, which for its short term is called CAMS. I've since been referred to CAMS through my school, but this time it was through speech and language, and I was 10 when I was actually seen at CAMS, because CAMS has a bloody long waiting list, and I know this. When I was seen at CAMS, it wasn't great. The first time I was seen, the guy that we had, I can't remember his name, I remember that he had a really thick accent. I think it was either Australian or New Zealand. He had like a really thick accent, I remember that. And he sat down and he basically told my mum that Dr. Merkel had been lying to us and that I didn't fit any of the traits for female autism. And I was sitting in that room. I'd been pulled out of school for this. I was in my first year of secondary school and I'd just been like, I'm lying. I wasn't in secondary school at this point, sorry, I'm thinking of something else. And I'd been pulled out of school for this, and I hate missing school. I absolutely loathe it. And he sat us down, and I'm sitting in this room basically having had one professional tell me this is what's wrong, and then having another even higher up professional tell me actually this isn't what's wrong. That was really scary, and it must have been terrifying for my mum as well, not knowing what's wrong with her child. I'm not a parent, obviously, but it's scary enough not knowing what's wrong with yourself, but if you've got a kid to worry about and you don't know what's wrong with your kid, it must be absolutely terrifying. And I remember after my mum in the car home, I was like, Mum, why do I not get this piece of paper that I need? Why can I not get this? And she was like, honestly, honey, I don't know. We just need to wait and see where this road takes us. I was 11 when I was told to come back for another meeting at CAMS, so I was about to start secondary school, I think. Yeah, I was in my last year at primary school at this point. In Scotland, it's slightly different to England. I'm not going to get into the school system. So it was about my going into my first year of high school, last year of primary school, that I was told to come back to CAMS for another check-up meeting before they kind of discharged me. I use the word discharge very loosely because they didn't really discharge me for about 6 months or so after my diagnosis. We had a different guy this time, and he was much nicer. He actually sat us down and he asked me about school because I was wearing my school uniform, if I was excited about going to high school, and I looked at him and I was like, no, I'm not. I don't want to go to high school until I know what's wrong with me. He was like, what do you mean, what's wrong with you? And I was like, well, that's why I'm here. I want to know what's wrong. And he said, well, you're autistic. We know this. We've known this for years. And I was like, you've known this and you haven't diagnosed me. We just don't think you fit everything. And I was like, how can I not fit everything? Like, at 11 years old, I'd already had my first panic attack by this point. I was 10 when I'd had my first, bad panic attack. And I was having anxiety attacks, on I don't want to say daily basis, but very, very regularly. And then kind of being told I fit some of this, but not enough of this. That, really depressed me quite a lot. This is when I had, a first, real depressive spell. I heard nothing more from CAMS. I don't remember going to CAMS. I think I kept going to speech and language for a little bit, but I don't really remember much about it. And then when I was 13, I took a day off from school. It was in May of 2014, because I just had my 13th birthday. I got taken out of school. I skipped school on a Friday. I say skipped school, it wasn't really a skip, I wasn't truanting. The school knew where I was going. And they took me in. I remember what I was wearing actually, it's quite creepy that I remember this, but I was wearing grey, jeans, grey, light grey, stonewashed jeans, a black and white and grey, overshirt, flannel shirt, with a black band top on underneath. I remember that distinctly. This has got nothing to do with that. But I remember kind of sitting in that room, and I had one woman who was asking me questions and one woman that's taking notes. And one was sitting there, one was sitting there, and I was sitting there, so it was like a triangle. I remember sitting there and having these two women like staring at me. One of them was firing questions and one of them was taking notes. It was working in a triangle. Questions, answer, notes. Question, answer, notes. And she asked me, do you think you could be autistic? And I looked her dead in the eye, and I'm not one to make eye contact, which is part of my autism. And I go, yes, I do believe I have autism. I've looked it up online, and the things that have come up online, I fit every single one of them. And she called my mum in and she was like, we have a diagnosis, your daughter has autism. See ya. And then it was only when we got, like, my mum speaking to me in the car, she was like, they knew you were autistic just from looking at your file, and then when you brought up anxiety in the room, she told me that I also had anxiety, which links in with my autism. And I cannot describe the immense feeling of relief that I got when I finally had the diagnosis. I had the piece of paper that I needed. And then I kind of realised, actually, this isn't going to get me very far at all. I've spent the best part of 5 years growing up in like a circle of rooms, receptions, and therapist suites to basically be right back to square one. Like, I had the diagnosis now, but I didn't know what to do with it. And since then, not to say that speech and language haven't helped me, because they do. I see the therapists actually come in and see me at school because of where my school is and where their office is situated. I do see them quite a lot. I've got a teacher who's been on a mental health course, so she knows how to deal with me. I've got a pupil support teacher I find it extremely easy to talk to her about anything at all. But I do have to manage my panic attacks and my anxiety attacks and my autism mostly on my own at school, which is how I'm going to segue into this next conversation, which is about this little bag that I carry. I'm just going to show the first thing. This is the bag that I carry around school when I go out. I carry this bag everywhere, and the reason why I use this bag, it's a makeup bag by, I don't know who this is, by Max Factor. And the reason I use it is because it's red, and when you think of red, you think panic, like panic buttons. So that's why I use this one. And I'm just going to show you what I keep in it. I have these, which I get from Holland and Barrett, I believe. I've actually finished these ones. These are blackcurrant pastels. It's empty now, I can't use that. I stocked up on these the other day. These are orange ones. I'm going to see if I can show you what they look like. The blackcurrant ones are purple, just because that's the flavour that they have. And you basically just put them on your tongue, press them against the roof of your mouth, and it, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it works for me. It's like giving you something to focus on, so that you're not focusing on anxiety, which really helps for me. Also in the bag, really bloody slippery, I have this. I did have a spray, but my little brother kind of stole it when I bought this. It's meant to be used at night, and I did try to use it at night, but it didn't really work for me anyway, and it's just drops. And I'll see if I can show you, just kind of go like that. And you just put a couple of drops on your tongue. It doesn't really have a taste, but the taste it does have is quite nice. That's not a correct English sentence. But it works. It just kind of relaxes me. It gives me something to focus on as well. Tissues. I need to get a new packet of tissues. When I have my panic attacks, I usually get really upset or I sweat quite a lot, so I usually have like a mini deodorant here, but that seems to have gone missing. So I always carry tissues and or wet wipes, mini packet of wet wipes. Always. You never know when these will come in handy. Not even just for panic attacks and anxiety attacks, these things are actually really bloody useful. I shouldn't be carrying these in school, but this is just like simple, like ibuprofen headache tablets, because sometimes when I have a really bad panic or anxiety attack, I get a really bad headache or stomach ache, or I get chest pain, which sounds really serious, but it's not. So I just kind of carry that. There's other stuff in this bag that have got nothing to do with this, and I don't even know why they're in there. This is an anxiety toy, you know, like the fidget spinners and the fidget cubes. I actually do have them, but I think my brother's got my spinner and my cube's gone missing. So this is my twisty tie. I broke it recently, so it still kind of works. Like, I'll just sit like under the table and just like play with it like that. and it's really easy to kind of, I don't distract myself with it, it just gives me something to focus on. And that's more for autism than anything else. Mints. These, for me, work very similarly with my pastels. These are just Dominion Strong Mints. I just throw a couple in before a lesson if I feel a bit anxious, and it gives me something to focus on. This video is going to be like 20 minutes long, I'm just realising that now. Hand cream. Just works. I don't know how to explain hand cream, but it just works. This is a little tub of like Vaseline, or what's the other thing it's called? Cold cream? No. Vicks. It's Vicks. And if you, it's Vicks Vapor Rub, and if you haven't smelled Vicks, it has an extremely strong scent, and it helps me focus. I don't know why, but it kind of like shocks me back to reality. It's like smelling salts. And the bag, there's usually something else in here. I used this bag recently on a sleepover, and it's got like my sleeping pills in that. I'll see if I can show you one of them actually. That's one of my sleeping pills. I take 2 or 3, it just kind of depends on how tired I am. And it's melatonin, so it's just like a little capsule. I've got the bottle down there. I keep beside my bed. And I just use that to help me drift off to sleep at night, because part of my autism means I don't fucking sleep. A couple of questions. How do I deal with panic and anxiety attacks? I use my bag. First off, that's like my first line of defence. My second line of defence, my teachers, when I was diagnosed, got an email around the school. And then another one when my school changed teachers. If the teacher's not in, like, they all know that I've got anxiety. And a lot of my teachers can really pick up when I'm having an anxiety attack, because I'm just not myself. I've explained in my other videos, I get like really claustrophobic, and I sweat and I shake, and I sometimes get really upset and cry. I don't tend to cry though, so I don't like crying. And so I sometimes say, "Miss, I'm not feeling well, can I stand outside for 5 minutes?" If it's a really bad panic attack, I go over to the Learning Communication Support Centre in my school, and I talk to the teacher that's trained to deal with me. And sometimes I text or call my mum at my next break, and I'm just like, "Hey, I'm having a really bad day. Just let me know when you get this, and I'll see if I can have a phone call with you when I can." Next question. How do I talk about my panic and anxiety attacks so easily? I talk about my panic and anxiety attacks easily because I don't see the point in staying quiet, if that makes sense. Like, being quiet about something is not what I'm into at all. We need to talk about things, and if we're wanting to raise awareness and we're wanting to not necessarily find a cure, but we want to develop treatments or remedies to help with this, then awareness needs to be done. Have I ever had a bad panic attack at school? Yes. I don't know if I really want to get into this because it makes me really upset when I talk about it. Basically in January last year, I lost a family member, my uncle. I was really close to him. My mum told me in the morning that something was wrong and he was in the hospital, and at first I thought, right, okay, he's in the hospital. I'm taxied to school, so I was in the car, and it was the worst possible situation for me to go to school that day, but I can see my mum's thinking behind it. She wanted me out of the way. So I get in the car, I go to school, I'm taken out of my first lesson. I wasn't due to be anywhere that first class anyway, so I was down talking to my teacher, and I basically went and just burst into tears and started crying. Talked to her about that for a period, went up to my second period, which was history, and I don't remember what we were learning about at all. I took notes, but I don't remember what happened. Came down, had my interval, my recreation time, my break. Went back up to my third period, which I think was modern studies at that time. I don't take that anymore. And had a panic attack and fainted, and basically ended up on the floor in the department. I was lucky in that I had a teacher or a support assistant in that class with me who was able to get me down to the LCSE very promptly indeed, and I spent the rest of the afternoon, the rest of the day in the LCSE, and it was only when I got home that I realised that my uncle had died. But that's another video. This is like 20 minutes long, so I'm really, really sorry. I'll do another video on this if you want. This is just my diagnosis story and how I deal with panic and anxiety attacks. So, yay. Take 3 of trying to be a YouTuber. Fun. It's like 20 to 12 at night, so I need to go. So, bye guys. See you soon. Love you guys. Bye.